Hey everybody, welcome back to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thanks for joining us on this Monday, May 23rd, which means it's the week of Star Wars Celebration. Whether you're going to Anaheim like us, we'll be together very soon, the three of us, for the first time in almost 3 years. The three of us being me, and we have James and Lacey here, as always. Whether you're going or not, obviously they're going to be broadcasting a lot of the major panels, so you'll be sitting on your couch pretending you're sick from work or school or whatever it may be. It's Star Wars Celebration for everybody, but we just want you to know that we will be there covering it, so stick with us throughout the week, and if you are going to Celebration, we look forward to seeing you there. Guys, it is here. I cannot believe I have not bought my hand sanitizer yet, quite frankly.
Do you want some of mine? Because I bought, no joke, like 12 bottles.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I saw a deal on this site called Amazon. I don't know if it's a...
I was that person at Target that was like, oh, a whole rack of them? Thank you so much.
Just shovel it into your basket. Yeah.
That, and then I was like, oh, I will take this beef jerky. That was the other thing.
Lacey just takes all their toilet paper, all their hand sanitizer. She's like, it's March 2020 all over again.
Why would I need toilet paper, though?
Well, remember, there was the big shortage. That was the big deal. Everyone was hoarding toilet paper when the pandemic started. But we're on to better times because we actually are going to a Star Wars Celebration that is happening. So very excited about that. James, we have a pretty packed show. So we typically banter at the top here, but let's just get in the mix here. What's our first segment of the day?
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
There it was, that beautiful voice from Rogue One off in the distance. No, Will the Force, right? It's back. And we got an episode here with a couple patron submissions, which I'm pretty excited about, including this one from a commander of ours, Ivy Tudor. Ivy sent in the question, wait, I even looked this up. Riva.
It is Riva?
Yeah, because...
oh my gosh, all I'm going to see now is Reva McEntire in a black suit. That's all I'm going to see all the time, and I'm sure people have photoshopped it. That's all I'm going to see now.
Yeah, okay. So it's, will Reva die at the end of the Obi-Wan series? Lacey, will Reva McEntire die at the end of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series?
Lacey. Ivy, hey, how's it going? Thanks for your question. This is actually a really good question because I think as Star Wars fans, we always go into new properties and or shows, movies, what have you, books, especially now. I feel like everyone's talking about how people die in the books, but people always die in Star Wars. It's a war. So people don't make it through. I think she will die. I think she's going to die by the end. I think that there's a couple people in here that you know are not going to die. Obi-Wan Kenobi, check, won't die. Vader,
you don't know
check. Oh yeah, he's never really gone.
The multiverse.
Yeah,
I figured it out, guys. He dies in this show, normally. His body's laying there. He comes back as a Force ghost, gets really good at it, is a Force ghost in A New Hope, and when he's fighting Vader, that's how he's able to just disappear.
It was there all along.
There's no reason they can't tell that story.
He didn't travel the Junlin wastes lightly.
Yeah.
No, I think she's gonna die probably in a super epic way, like in an epic battle or something. But I don't know how this character will continue on. I don't. Like, how is this person going to keep going if they're showing up just now and then you never see them again in future things? Now, I understand the original trilogy was made in the 70s and 80s. I get it. But I'm saying, in canon, how is this possible? How would you explain this? I know they don't really explain Ahsoka and Outer Rims, Draft Folder. We've said it before. But, yeah. Sadly, I think she's not going to make it.
John, are you on the same page, or do you think Reva's sticking around?
Reva. My Reva. Yeah, I think she's gonna die. I think that little speculation I had from last week, where she's gonna be like Vader's secret agent, working against the Emperor's directive just to go after Kenobi, is going to come to the surface, and Vader is going to kill her.
That's a good call, because he does kill everybody else that fails him.
And we know Vader can't kill Obi-Wan in this. Lacey just went down the list. Who's Vader killing that's an impact player? We need an impact death from Vader in this series. Granted, Rogue One, it was just a bunch of soldiers, but it was done epically. So I think she's going to be the one that gets killed. Now, having said that, I know people are going to be upset about this because I've already fallen for her as a Star Wars actor for many reasons. First of all, she's young. She seems to be really charismatic. I think she's going toe to toe with Ewan and Hayden in these things with the three of them. So good on her for that. The fact that you can go back in Star Wars and punch people in and stuff like that, I think that's how they'll be able to bring her back for other stuff. So I agree that she will die in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series in a big way at the hand of Lord Vader.
The only thing that I have with that, because I like that story, is Jedi Fallen Order.
All right.
It's like poetry. It rhymes, James.
Yeah, but it's literally the exact same thing. It's like you have...
It's poetry!
a black female maskless inquisitor killed by Vader.
No, you're totally right.
She was too loyal.
Right.
It's
those
literally
giant round super weapons?
But it's not exactly the same thing. And this is exactly the same thing.
What was the big orb in A New Hope called?
The Death Star?
Yes. What was the big orb called in Return of the Jedi? Anybody?
Oh, that wasn't an orb, actually. It was reconstructed. It was different.
The Death Star!
Yeah. But this
Where are we going with this? What?
Yeah. He's trying to say it's the exact same thing, but I'm like, I mean, it's like I said, it would be female, black, maskless. As far as we know, I don't
think the race has anything to do with it.
I'm just saying it doesn't necessarily, but it just kind of paints itself as like the same. Like if I were watching that scene, I'd be like, I feel like I've seen this before, and you could put it side by side and be like, I feel like I'm watching the exact same scene happen at a different angle.
Yeah.
Like it almost feels like the exact same character. But anyway,
sure.
I mean that it's not just the same story, but it feels literally the same. So I like that story and it's good, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I'm gonna go wild because I think you might be right, but let's play into what I speculated before, that they do go down the route of giving us the Darth Vader show that has Kenobi in it. She could stick around through that. So in the hopes that we didn't want Moff Gideon to die, let's keep Riva around too. I say keep her alive. Keep her as an Inquisitor. But I don't know. You guys might be right. If it really is like limited series, they probably would kill off that character. All right, so heading into the next question here, will Ashley Eckstein voice Ahsoka Tano again in an animated Star Wars cartoon? So not really like, the shorts. Technically, those are all part of canon and stuff. So not really talking about Forces of Destiny, though. A longer, thought out, stretched out series, ongoing series. Will she ever show up again? John, you're starting this one. Do you think she would ever return? I mean, she would, but do you think they'll write that in?
I don't think so. I like Ahsoka fine. I'm not, there's, plenty bigger fans than me, of course, but I do enjoy the character. But I think there's been a lot of Ahsoka, and she's had one of the more developed, stretched out story arcs.
It's still happening.
When we first met her in the Clone Wars movie to now, and it's continuing on now through Rosario Dawson. I don't know where it would fit to create her presence in another impactful animated way like a Clone Wars or Rebels. So the short stuff that may come out, if Tales of the Jedi is like an anthology thing and she's in that, sure. But in terms of like the series, like serious canon type stuff, I think it's done. I think that book is closed.
Lacey?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with John on this one. I don't think she will. Ashley will not voice Ahsoka Tano again, which is sad because she's really she really is Ahsoka Tano. Like, that's who she is. She enjoys it. It's given her a career. It's made her such a big person in fandom, and fans have really connected with that character through her. I think that's why there's been this hesitancy to maybe appreciate the Rosario Dawson one, because they're so connected to this animated one, which I totally understand. But yeah, no, I think once that transition happened to the live action one, I don't think they're then going to go back to the animated one. I think we're going to hear that story through Dave with the live action Ahsoka, not through the animated one. And I think we're going to get into that in a little bit about what we learned over the past week. But there were a lot of moments where they talk about Dave and how this is his time to step forward with this series, and this is what he's always wanted. So he's not going to go backwards into animation. And that's not a critique in that animation is less than live action. I just think that the characters made the jump and you can't then jump it back.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that the sticking thing that you hinted at, Lacey, that I would go even further on is I think that more, like, even though Ashley Eckstein is Ahsoka and like those two are connected, I think she's along for the ride, and the real connection is Dave Filoni and Ahsoka.
Sure.
And I think that right now Dave told his story, and then he brought her into Rebels and continued the story and grew the character. And then now that he's continuing and he's moving on to live action, Ahsoka's on that ride. And so long as he stays on whatever path that is, she won't be returning to animation because Dave Filoni won't be returning to animation.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that's where the connection is. So it's kind of unfortunate in that regard, but I think like if they ever wanted to like make quick Ahsoka content, it would show up in those little shows. But I can't really see like a longer told story where she's involved. I don't know, but yeah, that sucks. But I think that's the case. We got another patron submission here, and this one is coming from a newly appointed Admiral. Yeah.
Who is it?
Well, this is going to be Michael Schilling who sent in the question.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Michael.
Michael is now an admiral, and he had a question for us that is, will we learn the details of the main character of the Acolyte at Celebration? So, guys, this is only, what are we at, like 4 days from now, 3 days from now? And that's probably where we're going to hear it. This came out Monday,
Depends
so we've got to
it.
Tuesday to Wednesday and then to Thursday, right? So, yeah.
Countdowns are always tricky for me because it's like, do you count the day that you're in or do you not?
Yeah. So
and
72
what day of the
hours.
week does your birthday fall on?
Shut it. Shut your mouth.
But as we stand here Monday, do we think we're going to learn the details of at least the main character? Lacey, you're going first on this one. Thoughts?
100%. We're going to learn a lot more about this show during that showcase panel on Thursday. I've been saying it for weeks now. It's 90 minutes, guys. That is a lot of time to fill. And I think that being that they gave details in that Vanity Fair article, they're going to give even more and probably bring out Leslie Headland to talk through the show and specifically probably give us a synopsis of what the show's about. Which includes that main character. Did they officially announce wasn't it a rumor who was playing her, or did they officially announce who was playing the main character?
No.
I don't think they officially announced.
Because I know it was rumored it was Amandla from Hunger Games who plays Rue. But yeah, I would say yes, 100%. That panel is going to be bananas. And I think, when we do our live show on Saturday, you guys are definitely going to hear it. How nuts that day was.
Yeah.
John, do you think we're going to learn about the main character of Acolyte?
Yeah, I do. I think not only will Leslie Headland be there, but I think that person will as well. I think they'll bring whoever
Nice.
that actor
Yeah.
is out on stage and say, this is our new antagonist, protagonist, whatever angle they're telling this story from, because it is supposed to be pretty Sith dark side based. That doesn't mean the main character is going to be evil, but that'd be kind of interesting. So whatever it may be, I think that at least that person will join Leslie Headland on stage and give us a bit more, and probably an official release date and that sort of stuff.
I'm going to hedge my bets, and I'm going to say no. Part of this is because if I am wrong, then I win. Right? And it's the going in with low expectations thing. But we don't really know. One good point is that it was brought up in the Vanity Fair stuff, so that's true. But I usually think they're trying to, I don't know. I feel like it's like just beyond, so it's like if there is a celebration next year, like that would be a good spot for it to learn a lot more about it. But I just think we're so far from it. We didn't even really get confirmation of like Obi-Wan stuff that far in advance either, So I think it's too far out. So I'm gonna go with no, but I hope I'm wrong. Last one on this list is, now that Kathleen Kennedy has confirmed Taika Waititi's film is currently the next Star Wars movie. Of course, it was Rogue Squadron, but that's been pushed aside. Will Taika be the only future Star Wars movie? Will Taika's movie be the only future Star Wars movie talked about at the Lucasfilm Studio Showcase? Again, we're only 72 hours away, but as Monday, where do you stand, John, on Taika's being the only live-action Star Wars movie talked about?
I think that's true. Man, because she addressed the Rian Johnson thing, which is going nowhere. We'll talk about all this in a little bit in the main discussion. Rogue Squadron pushed aside. They're not going to talk about that. They want to focus on things that are going on. And the Feige thing, again, we'll talk about this in a little bit. Her response on that was a little strange. So based on that, unless they're going to shock us with a thing we've never heard of, which I don't think so, I think Taika Waititi's would be the only upcoming Star Wars movie that we talk about. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to sprinkle in some indie on us, because it's sort of like that close marriage between the two. But I think Taika's is the only Star Wars movie we'll hear about. And we may get him via satellite. I don't know if he'll show up. I don't know where he lives. He might be in New Zealand. I don't know if he's LA based, but maybe we get him via satellite. Or
he seems like he would live in Topeka, and everybody's like, really?
He'll have a pre-planned little sketch like he did with his keyboard that time. And they'll play that and, say he's hard at work and stuff like that. And I think that's the one that we'll hear about for movies.
Lacey, is this going to be the only movie we hear about?
No, I think they're going to run through what they have on the slate. Even if it's like, hey, this is happening. But it could be like, Kathleen Kennedy on stage being like, and all these things that are happening. And it's like logos. So that falls into this.
Count?
Yes, of course it counts. They're still mentioning it in the panel.
I think by technicality, she's right here, because I think what we're discussing right now is them completely, it's celebration, and they're not talking about Rogue Squadron or mentioning it,
I'm pulling a James right now. I'm slipping it in there. I'm slipping it in right in that loophole.
At the crowd reaction, if she mentions Rian Johnson, what does that?
I'm not saying she'd mention it. I'm saying Rogue Squadron and stuff, they've shown logos for it. So she could just throw the logo up and be like, and we have many things coming. Thanks for coming. Have a great day. Music out.
Mm-hmm.
Throne room music out.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think that I will, I hedged my bets on the other one. I'll go full on this one. I think, no, there will be more they are going to talk about. And I think, where this is coming from is that Vanity Fair article, and I think from maybe something else that I was listening to.
It was from March too.
Yeah, and I think the part in there is that she said there was more on the slate for feature films that we'll be announcing soon, or we'll be able to talk about soon. And I'm like, well, that's March. You have Celebration here. When is soon? And that to me says, you're saving this announcement of a new studio or feature film for Celebration. So I think there's a new feature film yet announced that they will announce here. But that's a little bit of a bold thing. And even if you do this, it literally doesn't even mean it's going to happen.
Also, side note, the indie thing,
it's like
the
Lucasfilm is
indie
like
thing, John,
Google.
I think they're going to save that for D23.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think indie's going to be brought up at all. I think that's not quite it. But hey, you know what? We can be done with Will of the Force because we have another segment that I want to get to. But then after that, we're going to get to the discussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lacey.
All right, guys, it's time for the Patreon pod race. So as you guys know, there are lots of ways you can support us. You can like this video, comment, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on all the audio platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please make sure to leave us a review. It really helps us out and helps new people find our show, which welcome new people. We've had a lot of new people recently let us know that they found us through the May the 4th announcement through Apple Podcasts and much more. So thank you so much. Keep spreading the word. You can follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN or on Instagram at The Resistance Broadcast. Please make sure to follow all our social channels this coming week. We're going to have a lot of cool stuff like live footage and recaps and whatnot. So you don't want to miss a thing. But if you want more than that, including exclusive videos, Discord server access, and much, much more, you can head over to patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Starting at just $2 a month. That's right, just $2. You get to support what we're doing here. You say, hey, I want to join the TRB community. I like what you guys are doing. Keep talking about Star Wars. And we appreciate it very much. This is a part of the show that our generals and spice runners get to take part. We ask them a question. They give us an answer. We discuss accordingly. So first, I want to say thank you to those people, which a lot of these people we're meeting this week, and I'm very excited about that. So first of all, thank you to our generals, Carmelo, Jeremy Myers, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Paul Olson, Darth Hurricane, John Travolta, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Danny, Mike Ramori, Matt Heath, Chris White, Brendan McLaughlin, and Val Trichkoff. My brain skipped a name for some reason. Sorry about that. Thank you guys so much. And our Spice Runners, thank you to David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gellner, Ryan Warr, Dave Hornack, Micah Harrison, Thomas Hennessy, and Andrew Staley. So excited to meet all of you that are coming this week. And our Spice Runners, part of their perks is they get to have a dinner with us on Thursday. So that's kind of fun.
Very exciting.
So this week, we are talking with Nick Kratz. What up, Nick? We asked him, based on what we just learned this past week from Leslie Headland about the Acolyte, what do you hope we learn in that series to help explain how the Sith not only returned, but infiltrated the Senate? Nick, take it away.
Hey, TRB. One of the things I'm really looking forward to, and one of the things I really enjoyed about the prequel era and Clone Wars, was just watching Palpatine sort of manipulate both sides. I'd really love to know if he was the originator of this plan, or when he presumably killed Darth Plagueis, whether he, kind of took over a plan that was already initiated. I'd love to see the inner workings because as a political junkie, I think about how, a country or a form of government can sort of be corrupted. And here we're talking about, thousands of star systems that are kind of being manipulated by the same person. So just to kind of see how that transcribes and what the death count was leading up to that, who was killed along the way and that was covered up, and whether there was anybody asking questions about either missing bodies or things that didn't line up or corruption along the way, I think would be a really cool story, especially from what we learned that, the Jedi were sort of unaware or in an era where they were non-suspecting. So thanks, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. We'll talk soon.
Nicely done, Nick. Thank you so much for doing that pod race. Great answer. John, what did you think?
I mean, I like Palpatine a lot. I've always been sort of hoping for more of that sort of backstory on him than a lot of characters. And I think they said this show is going to be 100 years before The Phantom Menace or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
50.
Palpatine won't be... 50?
They had
50.
just said 100 this past week in Vanity
I think
Fair.
they just changed that.
They
to
changed
100.
it
They
to 100.
changed it to 100?
Mm-hmm.
Or
What?
50 was rumored, and now it's the real answer is 100.
It got bumped
but
up to 100,
I believe I saw 100 as well.
Oh, that's crazy.
But either way, my point is Palpatine won't be around during this series, so it would be interesting to find out, like you were saying, Nick, if someone else sort of had the plan and Palpatine sort of screwed them over and took it, whether that's Plagueis or someone else. That's intriguing to me because, you know, Palpatine is almost just as much of a mystery to me as Yoda, predating the Phantom Menace. So I'd like to learn more about that. I know they obviously had that book that they wrote that's not canon, but the Plagueis novel. But I like what you're saying. So you got me excited thinking about that sort of thing. That's a way to sort of loosely connect to what we know for familiarity, but also make it really fresh. So I think you're kind of onto something there. And the political intrigue, I did like that aspect of the prequels, even though I thought some of the storytelling on that, dialogue-wise, was choppy. How the story was set up and how he did it was ace. And I think adding to that to make the prequels even more enjoyable to understand how it got to that point would be really cool. So I think you're right on to something there. So great job. And Nick's not going to Celebration, right?
I don't believe so. Not this time.
But hopefully we see you, man. But either way, I hope you enjoy what comes out for Celebration. Great job on the pod race. Thanks for being an awesome supporter and a great Star Wars fan. And take care of that new Top Gun fan, buddy. I saw it. See you, man.
James?
Yeah, Nick, your answer is great. It's like exactly the kind of thing that gets me interested. Like I'm usually okay, I get it. That was a great story. That's the story. But how? Like sometimes I want to see those details. I find intrigue in that. But one thing that your answer reminded me of is I'm really interested, and Star Wars just doesn't seem to do this for some reason. Like both sides of the war, they both called it the Clone Wars. Like that's weird to me. You know what I mean? Like it should be like one side calling it the Clone Wars and one side calling it like the Independent War or whatever. And then years later, it kind of got lumped into like a name for that whole thing. But like this also is another example of that, is like they're very clearly calling themselves the High Republic. That's what we are called. And at some point, they just decided to like demote themselves to a different name, sort of, you know? And it's like, it doesn't appear like any big regime change happened. It wasn't like good and then went to bad, similar to like Republic to Empire or Empire to New Republic, right? But some point they kind of like shifted the name, degraded it down to just like the Republic or something. And I don't know. I'm interested in those types of details. And I think like a show that kind of what you're talking about, the digression from the high point is really like the details there. And I'm really excited. I think you're dead on, and I'm excited to go there. I think Acolyte's
great answer, Nick. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing that pod race. I know you know this because I've said it before. I hate Palpatine. so I appreciate your answer, but at the same time, I'm like, you know, I always go back to that Poe Dameron, like somehow he returned, like we're there again. But I get that there's a very interesting story there, and I'm sure they'd find someone really cool to play that part. But anyway, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon in the community, and now we're gonna head to John for the discussion.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
All right. So, Kathleen Kennedy, big interview with Vanity Fair, mostly on the future of Star Wars. So, I think by this point, most, at least die-hard, big-time Star Wars fans either caught wind of what came from this interview or read it themselves. But mixed reactions, I think, to say the least, would be fair. But either way, when the president of the studio that makes your favorite film franchise speaks, you listen intently, and fans sure did. So Kathleen Kennedy recently spoke again with Anthony Breznican of Vanity Fair about the past, present, and future of Star Wars television and movies, including their approach to handling any future usage of legacy characters. So let's tackle as much as we can, things that stood out to us, things that maybe surprised us, things that made us happy, things that made us a little bummed out, whatever it may be, whatever stuck out to us. I certainly have a list of things. Some are head scratchers. Some are like, that's interesting. Some are like, oh, man. So I'm kind of all over the place with this thing. I saw a lot of people saying like, oh, my God, I'm so happy. This is so great. And then I saw some people thought it was a complete disaster. So
I saw more of the latter. I'm going to be honest.
So I always forget former and latter. Latter means the more recent
thing
of the two options.
Yeah, the negative.
The negative. Okay.
I saw
later.
More Yeah, I
like
saw
latter's
more
the
negative.
correct way to, but former or the later, might
Gotcha.
help.
So Lacey saw more of negativity online, at least.
I want to be clear. Maybe not negativity. It's not people hating on anything. It's just people being very surprised and caught off guard by the answers. How about that?
Yeah.
Not necessarily like, this is stupid. It's more like, hey, that's not how I saw that, or that's not what I thought they would say.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, my take on that, just I feel like I did see that same side too. Like negativity might not be the right word, but I think like there was a couple things here that was like, there wasn't any big announcement like, hey, we're going to be doing more feature films in the next whatever. There was no announcement, but there was a lot of like, we're not going to be doing this in the future, kind of stuff. So it's like, I don't know if that's really like, how can you take that really as a good thing? It just seemed like there was more caution. This is the steps we're not going to be taking in the next few years, as opposed to steps we are taking. There's a couple in there.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked about VR, but and stuff like that. It's like,
oh,
I know, but I'm saying like those were steps that they're like, yes, we're very interested in these technologies. We're going to be moving in that direction. So it's like, there is some stuff, but it just didn't outweigh some of the other things that I feel like were more prominent,
Yeah. And I saw some good and some bad out of this. I think I'm leaning more towards disappointment in what I got out of that interview, and also how the context was positioned on a few things. But to make my position clear, because I think anytime people who want to criticize Kathleen Kennedy are fearful that they're going to get lumped into the hate machine of Kathleen Kennedy. And I think people need to compartmentalize the layers of healthy criticism of a studio executive and people who just blindly hate things just for the sake of it. There's ways to be an adult about this thing. I have a hard time when everyone says everything that comes out is great, because then it's like, then where is how do you rate the value of that opinion? If everything that person says is, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. This is great. It's like, okay, what is that compared to? So I like honest criticism. Some of the stuff in this interview had me scratching my head a bit. The one thing that obviously stood out to me is, and we'll probably spend a good time on that, is the whole aspect of the comments that some people still seem confused about, but it seemed clear to me that she was saying recasting these legacy characters is something they're probably not going to do anymore. But another thing that I'll start with, because I know I'm going to spend time on that, is the Feige movie thing. That is so interesting to me, because I looked back at the archives on Star Wars Newsnet and other places, other interviews with prominent people involved in this, including Alan Horn, who was the chairman of Walt Disney Studios, in September of 2019, confirming that Kevin Feige was making a Star Wars movie. So that was 3 years ago. And Kathleen Kennedy referred to that as the rumor mill in this interview. The Kevin Feige movie was in the rumor mill, and she would like to see what he could come up with.
He was on the Star Wars show, wasn't he? Talking about how he loved Star Wars, and the reason was because then the announcement came out about it?
Yeah, I think he was on the Star Wars show a while before any announcements came out.
He has spoken.
Right.
He's been asked about his Star Wars movie, and more so, he was doing a lot of, no, I'm not taking over Lucasfilm, none of that.
Right,
He was
right.
It was that sort of stuff.
That was last summer when he was talking about Spider-Man and stuff. He'd get asked.
Yeah. I think the issue here is everyone's focused on that this interview took place in March. So it predates Michael Waldron talking about writing the script and stuff. I'm like, yeah, it does. It doesn't predate the literal chairman of the movie studio confirming that the movie was happening 3 years ago. So the fact that 3 years later, the president of that studio who's making said movie is calling it the rumor mill, I was like, what? I was like, did she forget that Alan Horn said that? Like, what's the positioning there? It's just so strange to me. And then now when you add on top of it the Michael Waldron stuff, I mean, Bresnikan did a great job with this article. This is so much good stuff. But they had to have been like, he has his finger on the pulse. He had to have been like, this is going to come off a little weird because Michael Waldron's going on all these interviews for the other stuff he's doing, saying, I am writing this movie right now. So that whole thing is a head scratcher to me. It's so for all those reasons. So that was one of the bigger standouts to me as something that was quite confusing, especially when she mentions in this interview that Rogue Squadron is being, I believe the quote was, pushed to the side, and that Taika's is now going to be the next movie. So she's giving us bad news already about the Patty Jenkins movie.
Can I go one step further with that, by the way?
Yeah, sure.
So I just did a quick search. Just quick Kathleen Kennedy, Kevin Feige movie, right? June 4th of 2021, Michael Waldron said, you've heard all my references here. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Kathleen Kennedy. She's made so many of my favorite movies. So to get to collaborate with both of those entities is a dream come true.
Yeah.
So he's even been talking with her, yeah.
So just for the sake of the quote,
confused.
The question was, Bresnikan said, I mentioned Kevin Feige before, and I know it's been reported he's producing something for you. Can you tell me about that? And she said, that's the rumor mill. Kevin, I think everybody knows, is a huge Star Wars fan. He's clearly been inspired by Star Wars in the way in which he handles Marvel. Maybe. I know he's got a lot on his plate right now. I would love to see at some point what movie he might come up with. But right now, no. There isn't anything specifically on the horizon. What? That's a lie.
So as
what's Michael Waldron saying?
So as of June 4th last year, Michael Waldron was like, I love Kathleen Kennedy. She's made all these wonderful things that I do. It's a dream come true. And now a year later, she's like, what?
Yeah, she's like, that would be neat if that ever happened. And it's like, it already has happened. It already is happening.
Yeah. Right. And then Bresnikan adds an update and says this interview was in March. And last week, Michael Waldron told Variety he was working on a script. Everybody knew that. And like I said, the chairman of the studio at the time, Alan Horn, in 2019 said, yeah, we're bringing in Kevin Feige. He's going to do a Star Wars movie.
So just to clarify even what I was saying before, I felt like there was a couple things where felt like it was like a step back. Like, here's where we're not going is like, I'm just looking at like, I took quick notes of like every kind of just general topic that was talked about here. And almost all of them have like like, well, we're not really going in that direction, including this thing. It's like, okay, you went into this interview thinking, okay, well, we already know about the Kevin Feige thing. Are they going to say, yes, it's happening, it's going to be amazing, and it's going to involve this era? Or is it going to be, no, it's not happening? Well, this was an example. No, it's not happening. It kind of went in that other direction of like an announcement. And you know, we can talk about it too if we get there, but like also the same thing with the Rian Johnson thing. Like, it was like, oh, okay, well, that's on the table. Is this going to address it? Yes, it's addressing that some would say like, oh, she's addressing it. It's still happening. That's a good sign. And I'm like, but it kind of isn't, because she's saying there's literally no commitment to it. Right. So who knows when that's ever going to happen? And it's like, okay, so quick, that's not moving forward. That's kind of sidestepping or moving back.
I definitely want to get to the Rian Johnson thing, because that is a very interesting thing if you read between the lines, in my opinion. But to close out the Michael Waldron thing, in my opinion, based on the Alan Horn thing, what Lacey just brought up of Michael Waldron in 2021.
I feel bad for Michael right now. Like, he's probably at home being like, over his keyboard being like, wait, what?
Should I stop typing? Like, yeah. But I guess just knowing all of those facts and how the timeline went, You can't. This is subjective. This is not objective. There's either one of two things here. Kathleen Kennedy's lying in this interview, or there's massive disconnect going on in development. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. As far as I know, no. As far as you know, the president of the studio.
There's also the third one. Like, if you're considering disconnect, just be like miscommunication is like one executive is saying yes, one executive saying no. And it's like, we're not on the same page. There's also it's since like very recently been like canceled and she's trying to backpedal.
But then why would Michael Waldron be going on interviews for another movie he's promoting saying he's writing the movie?
Well, that's what I'm saying is like very recently. Like, I don't know.
And he doesn't know?
Oh, wait, no, because this was from March.
Right.
I don't know.
James.
Well, I thought you were missing. I'm missing the obvious of like she's backpedaling because the whole thing is scrapped, but I forgot about the time difference here in the.
I think we're all looking at this article with the numbers on the screen, like us trying to like calculate when things are happening because it just doesn't add up.
So I think that's what a lot of people like. Everyone harped on when it was revealed this interview was conducted in March. That means nothing because of everything else that was said by people higher up than Kathleen Kennedy years ago. So it's strange. I'll just say that. And maybe she's holding it close to the vest, and maybe she forgot that Alan Horn said that. That's possible. You know, like maybe she doesn't have the right PR team in her corner updating her on everything that's been said by everybody. That's possible. I'm not saying they do a bad job or anything because there's a lot going on and it's been a long time. But it's just strange.
How would you not know though something that big?
I know. I agree. Maybe I'm just trying to play devil's advocate for them, but
maybe so just like that. My will of the force, like this is the feature that she's talking about, and you're right. She's holding it close to the chest. She's saying, in March, yeah, we're going to have some feature stuff that's coming out soon. You know, what about the Kevin Feige thing? Yeah, that's the rumor mill right now. We'll see, you know, kind of thing. And it's just like a weird, she just got asked. So I don't know. I think that would be lying, but it would also be like trying to hold it and reveal it later.
Yeah. And playing off that, it could be that they don't want that to be the lead of the article. They want the article to be about Kenobi and where TV's going, so they don't want Kevin Feige to overshadow it. So they're like, oh, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, everything we're saying right now is just trying to understand. But again, I think the weirdness still stands.
None of the options are good, in my opinion, on trying to understand it. So the Rian Johnson thing, Bresnikan brings it up. I'm glad he did, because a lot of people, for some reason, avoid it. I'm glad he went right for it. He said, fans want to know about Rian Johnson and his future with Star Wars. Is there anything you could tell us about that? Is the trilogy still on? So she goes over what we all know. Ryan's been busy with Knives Out and the deal he made with Netflix for multiple movies. I've had meetings with Ryan. He's somebody that comes in as part of our little brain trust discussions along the way, which I found interesting.
That was interesting, yeah.
So wait, he's been talking with them about other Star Wars stuff?
Other Star Wars stuff, I think, is what that
interesting.
Implicates.
Brain trust.
She goes, he remains very committed to what we're trying to do. He just literally hasn't had the time to devote.
But so he doesn't have time to devote, but he's calling in on random meetings?
So this feeds into other answers she gave.
A trilogy or feature and stuff.
So she said, anyone who comes into the Star Wars universe needs to know it's a 3, 4, 5-year commitment. That's what it takes. You can't step in for a year and shoot something and then walk away. It doesn't work that way. So it requires that kind of nurturing. So to me, this sounds like Rian Johnson is like the one who's pulling away.
Interesting. Yeah, because he's got that contract with Netflix. They gave him a
trilogy.
Money. Yeah.
So it's not them saying like they held up their end of the bargain, gave him the trilogy. He probably agreed to it. Everything we know that we don't need to talk about it.
Then Knives Out came out. Yeah.
Knives Out came out. He gets nominated for an Oscar for that. He's making a sequel to that. He doesn't need Star Wars. So this to me reads like Kathleen Kennedy's looking for more of a commitment from Ryan than he's willing to give right now. She's not willing to say it's done because she really loves Rian Johnson. And all the things you heard from people over the years was that JJ and Kathleen Kennedy didn't get along as much, but she loves Rian Johnson.
And if he jumps ship, it makes her look bad. It's another kind of tick on her.
Like the Game of Thrones guys. Yeah. So that's what it looks like to me. So if I had to guess, and this is just me speculating based on those statements, because she's like, to me, that sounds like a jilted person. Like Ryan found his new love over there at Netflix and with Knives Out and stuff. And like Star Wars is like the X and, you know, that sort of thing. And if you look at it, like the way they've been sort of struggling with these movies and the Rogue Squadron's getting pushed now and all the other production problems, obviously Solo, Rogue One, pick a movie, it had problems, except Ryan's actually, I think. Everything points to him having the leverage. Aside from, you know, the divisiveness of fans, but
good for him.
I think that goes away over time too. So that's my opinion. What do you guys think? I don't know.
To me, I think one thing that you skimmed over pretty quickly that I think is really the core of this is I need people for 3, 4, or 5 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was reading the article and then I immediately picked up my book. Question mark? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
4, 5 year commitment for like a director of a movie? Like, now I get it. Star Wars is not Marvel, but Marvel is always kind of that example of they're churning out lots of content that's making a lot of money and it's still pretty praised. Those people aren't involved for
5 years. Yeah.
3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, like, why do you need these people this long? That sounds like a
trilogy is 5 years.
That feels
right?
to me. Yeah. Like if somebody was, I mean, with Ryan, it was talked about a trilogy. Okay. All right, maybe he's the 4 or 5 years and maybe that kind of makes sense. But she's talking how it seems like that's why it's hard to get directors and people on board because that's what it takes to make Star Wars movies. Like, look at Favreau, for instance. And I'm like, I think you really lucked into Favreau being like, yeah, I'll do Star Wars for 5 years. And she's like, cool, that's the new standard. And it's like, that shouldn't be the standard. Like, that's crazy that you got Favreau, as accomplished as he is, to dedicate to Star Wars. But my thing is, like, you as an executive should be able to pick people and have your bigger picture, work with them for the 2 years that they're making their commitment, get them in and out and be done. Like, again, like, you know, we've had other directors. I mean, you did work with JJ. You worked with him for the 2 years of the time periods for his movies and he left, you know, he wasn't there for 5 years. Like, I don't know. It just, something about that 5 years thing said to me, like, you're asking for a bigger commitment that I think every director is going, I don't know that I want to do that.
5 years is a long time to work on one thing.
Yeah, but there's other parts of this interview that lend to the idea that she's looking for one person to become the George Lucas of the movies, and that person is the one who oversees the storytelling in the movies, because he asks her about the roadmap of movies and she says, there's a couple of filmmakers that we've been in conversation with over quite a long period of time that I'm hoping will come in and make the overall commitment that John and Dave have made, which is this multi-year lengthy thing on the movie side. And then she said, that's ideally what I would love to see happen in the feature space. So the theatrical films.
That's a lot of pressure to roll over to someone right off the bat. Because you have to look at, especially Dave, away from John Favreau. Dave is in this. He was in it from the moment he joined. And he wasn't going to go anywhere. He's never going to go anywhere. He's there for life.
He was on the phone with George Lucas. I'm your guy. I'm the guy.
He's never going anywhere. And I think there have been a lot of circumstances with Lucasfilm, and I think a lot of places, but definitely with Lucasfilm, where they've happened into the right people. And she says this in the article, like they happened on Jon Favreau and it worked out the way it did. They were able to pivot so quickly to television, all this other stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
Dave is not a normal thing. Yeah. Someone to stick around that long and be that passionate about one thing. That's not a normal...
No,
the vibe I got from this was that Kathleen wants that person to be Ryan. Yes. I think she loved Ryan. They got along really well. And she's like, come on, be my guy. 5 to 10 years. You love Star Wars. We worked great together. The movie was awesome. We made a bunch of money. We came up with great content. Everything about it makes sense. Come on, Ryan, can you commit? And you're right, John. I think that might be a sign that he's the one that's a little bit like, I will keep working on it. I love the direction we're going. I just don't want to sign that contract for 10 years, you know? That big overall, I'm the guy looking over all the movies. Especially when he did what he did and he had a good time, but like fan reaction to it, he's almost, I bet there's even a little bit of he's like, I'd come back and make some more movies. That's fine as long as you're making other stuff. If I'm the guy, I don't want to ruin Star Wars for so many people.
But unless
especially
she's talking
Knives
about
Out had such an overwhelmingly positive
that too.
reaction.
Yeah, it's like he has other options and avenues.
But Ryan's not a producer though.
No.
Ram Bergman's his producer.
Right.
She's looking for a Feige. She's looking for a producer.
That's a good point.
And the follow-up question is, are you talking about a commitment to make 3 movies or something even bigger like Kevin Feige is doing with Marvel? And she said, I wouldn't go that far. Kevin's an anomaly, an amazing one. But the goal is definitely having somebody make more of a commitment. I hesitate to use the word trilogies anymore. Good. I like that. Because Star Wars is much more about persistent storytelling. It just... all these things, these answers seem to meld into each other, that she's looking for one person to be like Favreau and Filoni are doing on TV side. She wants to see one producer create a rhythm on the theatrical film side. So it's not like this bargain bin, or what's a better word for it? Potpourri, where it's like, we got a Taika movie, we got a JJ movie,
I think it's
we got
more
a Ryan
than that,
movie.
though. It's not just producer. She's looking for someone like Jon Favreau who's going to take the story to a new, like
Feige.
a long period.
She wants her Feige.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not Feige, though. Feige's not writing the stories.
Oh, but he's overseeing the connectivity of everything. Like he's... like,
sure,
that's
but he's
all
bringing in the people to do that. Whereas like Jon Favreau and Dave have written out the stories. Like we know Jon Favreau is writing these stories years and years in advance. That's what she wants. She wants someone to come in and write these stories, do kind of a Peter Jackson thing where they shoot all these, these movies back to back, where it's like they're all into one. That's everybody's criticism with the sequel trilogy, is that because they were written by different people, there was no cohesive... there were issues with the story. They weren't like smoothly into the next one. They were just different feels. You get that from when you were little, you did that team exercise where you write a paragraph and then you pass the paper to the next person in line and then they write a paragraph. Right. And then your story was completely different by the end because it's kind of a game of telephone. It's kind of like that. I think she's looking for someone like Kevin Feige that's going to come in and oversee the whole connectivity of everything. But I think it's even more so someone that's going to come in and own that story the way Jon Favreau and Dave have.
Was there ever talks of this? Am I remembering rumors of J.J. Abrams possibly signing years ago to be like the guy for Star Wars? Isn't this?
No, I don't think anything came.
He was pitching his own story to people, not
he
Star
signed
Wars.
A deal with Warner Brothers.
Right.
Like he's over there now.
Yeah, I thought there was like, wasn't there even like a theme park and stuff? Like they wanted him to be like the overall guy for something.
I don't know about that.
I'd have to go back and see if I can find it. But anyway,
so we have that, and there are positives here, but I mean, a lot of the positive stuff is stuff I feel like we already knew. Like, Kenobi. Everyone's very excited about Kenobi. Mandalorian, very excited about Mandalorian. So there's a lot of good. The television side, there's a lot of good. I think the negative stuff seems to focus on 2 spots: the movies and how to treat characters. So we probably should spend some time on that, because obviously this impacts Solo and other things. The future of Luke Skywalker. She said point blank, Luke Skywalker can only be Mark Hamill, which is interesting because they just cast a 10-year-old kid to play Luke in this Kenobi series. Now, I understand he's probably going to have a very, very, very small part, but, it puts a lot of pressure on that kid when you have the president of the studio saying Luke Skywalker can only be Mark Hamill, and then you're like, all right, now we're going to throw this little kid out there, and he's Luke Skywalker for this show. Not a big deal. It's still a little to me, a little but
I think we should get to the meat, though, that I think a lot of people that listen to our show are waiting for the reaction of, which is the Alden thing. I think we've kind of been avoiding the conversation.
That's how you build theater. Yeah,
sure.
So the Solo thing. Let's get to because we don't want to mess up the quote.
Yes.
And I don't like how he asked the question, but it's okay. I mean, Brzezinski's awesome. So he said, I don't want to put you in an awkward spot. So out of the gate, he's, laying that
setting
way.
a preference or
a
precedent.
But was this an understanding you've come into that was developed from Solo being the handling of characters and that sort of thing? I don't want to trash Alden, he said. I think he did a good job. Just say I think Alden did a good job. You don't have to say I don't want to trash him. Like, I don't like that. And I know I'm biased. I love Alden Ehrenreich. And he said, but the idea is you can't really replace Luke Skywalker. Was that something you learned from that movie, or how would you put it in regards to Solo? And she said, maybe, as you say it, Anthony, maybe. I think back, and Solo was one of the first ideas that came up when the company was sold. Yeah, it was George Lucas's idea. Mm-hmm. One of the first people I went to was Lawrence Kasdan. We've known each other forever. Raiders of the Lost Ark. He was so excited to tell that story. We genuinely believed at the time it was a good idea. Ooh, mama, that's a rough sentence to read. And then she said, so yeah, there should be moments along the way when you learn things. That might have certainly been a learning moment. Some people have talked about how, well, maybe Solo should have been a TV show. But even doing Solo as a TV show without Harrison Ford as Han Solo, it's the same thinking. Whew, man. Maybe I should have recognized this before. We would never make Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. So Indy's done with Indy 5. Even though they had Sean Patrick Flannery play Indy and they had River Phoenix play Indy. Mm-hmm. Having just finished the 5th movie, I can tell you there wasn't a day I wasn't on set where I wasn't like, yes, this is Indiana Jones. And she's smart at how she presents that, because who's going to argue against Harrison Ford being Indiana Jones, So then to close it, she said, maybe I'm closer to the DNA of Indy, so she does admit that, and I've always have been. Then when I came to Star Wars, because now it does seem so abundantly clear that we cannot do that. You get excited by these things, and you want to revisit things you want. You want to have that feeling again, and you're trying to resurrect that. I think that's what we do even with our new characters. With Star Wars, everybody's talking about a feeling they have. That's the intangible idea you're looking for. To me, people have said she's not saying this. To me, she's saying recasting those big characters is a mistake.
Is a mistake and out of the question.
And she used Indiana Jones as an example. She said, Indy's done. She said, only Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. So
after they made a show of young Indy.
That George Lucas made, right. And River Phoenix played a young Indiana Jones in Last Crusade. So it's just like, that's brutal to hear, because this makes it sound like she's saying the problem with Solo was Alden, or not even Alden, just not being Harrison Ford.
Like, audiences didn't react positively to somebody else playing Solo,
and that couldn't be farther from the truth.
And
for some people, maybe, but
I get that. Yeah, for some people, probably that was the overall reaction. But I think a lot of people they saw it and didn't go see the movie, so it doesn't really have anything to do with Alden.
We all know why Solo did bad. Mm-hmm. She fired directors more than halfway through the movie. They had to double the budget and reshoot like 80% of the movie with Ron Howard. Out of the gate, that's already, you're screwing yourself in terms of profit. Everyone knows all that stuff. Bob Iger took the L on the marketing and the schedule of the release. And it was widely reported that Lucasfilm asked him to push Solo to December, and he would put his foot down because of the problems they already have with the movie. He said, no, we're putting it out when we're putting it out.
Which was after Avengers Endgame and after Deadpool.
Yep.
And I believe that story because he came out and took responsibility for it and said, we made a mistake with the marketing of Solo and the release of Solo. A feature Star Wars film didn't get its first trailer until 3 months before the movie came out. Insanity. Mm-hmm. And they didn't focus on the right parts of it. They should have focused more on Han and Kira. Clayton brought that up on our show. They booted Solo, and the last thing that was the problem with Solo was Alden Ehrenreich.
You mean the marketing, not the movie itself.
The marketing.
The marketing should have focused on Han and Kira.
The marketing was horrible. Yeah, the trailers and stuff, I mean,
I was like, well, I think the movie was pretty good.
No, the movie I love, yeah. And I think this movie's aging really well, and I think it's going to be one of those tragic stories, in like 10 years or so, where they're going to be like, man, Solo, you know what, that was a really good movie, and they probably should have done a better job.
I just don't
So-
understand how they can look at the past 3 to 4 years where Solo has trended numerous times, how people have constantly talked about how they loved it, how all the cast members said they loved it, how fans actively talk about how much this film means to them, and turn around and say, well, clearly this just didn't work because of Alden. It's because of Han Solo. And it's like, no. And every tweet I saw, guys, every single one, every comment on Instagram was, that's what you're taking away from this lesson? Is that it was Alden? Because that is not what anybody.
Even people who
criticized.
didn't like Solo said that guy was not the issue.
Yeah. I was going to say, I understand bubbles, and people are in their like bubbles and stuff. And I wouldn't imagine if somewhere or another Twitter has like figured out that my algorithm is pro Solo, you know what I mean, or something. But the thing is like I went to who was it that actually ran the big article that everybody's quote tweeting?
Vanity Fair?
No. The article.
Oh, discussing film or whatever.
Discussing film, yeah, I think. So they ran the big article. I went to their tweet and looked at, and it was like, a very small amount of comments, like 100 comments or 300 comments or something like that. But then like 9,000 quote tweets. I'm sorry. What I meant to say was, like 300 retweets, 9,000 quote tweets. And it's like, so everybody wasn't like for this. They had something to say about it. And then I looked at all of those quote tweets and just like read them straight timeline down. And it was all like, this is the wrong take. Like, big miss here. That's unfortunate. Like, he was not the problem with that movie. All sorts of stuff like that.
How are they supposed to do a Lando series if they're not going to recast?
That's the amazing part of it.
Well,
he was just on Jimmy Kimmel talking about it. And then you have obviously Obi-Wan, Owen.
Well, that
Beru,
was what made me laugh that day.
So-
is we were talking about it privately between the three of us on our Discord server, and I had said like, "Oh, this is crazy," and James is like, "It's even more crazy because it's in the same article that they're like, coming next Friday, Obi-Wan Kenobi recast character." Like,
which look, I can put 2 and 2 aside if you really want to have that debate. I get how
Sure.
Kenobi's different from this and that.
Yep.
But I do think that one thing to remember is, I know that Donald Glover has not been officially announced, but if in fact that's even part of the plan and that does come to fruition, what the heck? Like,
right.
I don't get that at all. And then we're arguing, well, he wasn't as prominent of a character, so we can get away with it with him.
But he's about to be.
I'm like, what are we
The show's called
doing?
Lando.
You're really putting the blame on that movie on just literally the fact that you had somebody else playing the character. Whereas like, we can name tons of movies that have done that with classic characters and had them brought down, and like some were bad, some were good or whatever. It's like, it really was a surprising statement from me that it did really feel like what happened with Solo. And it's like, I just really don't think people like that we cast someone as a young Han Solo. So we're never doing that again.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Whoa.
I've, for the 10 years she's been running Lucasfilm, I've supported Kathleen Kennedy. I've defended Kathleen Kennedy. I think she's one of the greatest producers of all time. No one needs to hear that from me. Everyone knows that. She was producing movies before a lot of us were born. But I think it's different being an executive versus of running a studio versus being a good movie producer. And I think it's fair to say that there have been a lot of hiccups especially on the film side of things. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm done with Kathleen Kennedy, but I usually lean on like sports analogies. And like, for example, like, I love the New York Yankees just as much as I love Star Wars. Sometimes, because I root so hard for the Yankees, sometimes I think maybe they need a new manager. Like, this manager's not, they were there long enough, and maybe they need a new voice or something like that. So that's a little of where I'm coming from here. And that's not to say like the years prior were bad. It's just sometimes these things evolve in a certain way where it's like, this is probably the time or something like that. And she did a wonderful job. I think, I don't know what's going on with the laughing.
I just keep picturing you up there like, I love the Republic.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, it's just like, she did a great job shepherding the sequel trilogy, which I loved. And that's a really hard task to do, to complete a story that started everything. So there's been a lot of good things that she's done. And I think some of the tough decisions she's made that looked bad on her were really tough calls to make, but sometimes ended up being good. Ron Howard coming into Solo, for example. So it's not all bad for me. A lot of people, especially online, they look at it's just black and white, whether you like her or don't like her. I don't feel that way. I really respect her a lot. I think she did a great job, but I think maybe there might be someone better out there to be an executive running the studio. So I'm not sitting here saying I hate Kathleen Kennedy, but I think maybe another voice might be something that could help the franchise going forward. That's just my take on that stuff. And the Solo stuff does bother me from that perspective, though. I'll admit that, because the answers, it seems like more than ever in this interview, she gave very corporate-y, executive type of answers, more than what we're used to hearing from Kathleen Kennedy, which are more of like, she's like very good at making things feel warm and making things feel like everything's okay. And that's where the good producer in her coming out. A lot of these answers felt a little defensive. In my opinion, and maybe you guys agree, the Solo answer does feel like she was pinning it on, it didn't work because it wasn't Harrison Ford being Han Solo. And I think we beat this dead horse. Every fan online, James, you were talking about the quote tweets and everything, and everybody, fans are a lot smarter than people give them credit for. I think everyone understands and knows via history why Solo didn't do well. And we touched on it here. Alden Ehrenreich was not the reason. And it feels like Kathleen Kennedy took such an L with Solo from Disney that there might be a defense mechanism in there. And pinning it on Alden seems to be what's happening here. But going as far as to saying, we realize we can't do that anymore. Like we've said,
it just doesn't make sense. It contradicts a lot of things that they have planning and they've done and they plan to do eventually.
Right.
It's just weird.
Yeah, it's tough, because that means then we're never going to get a young Palpatine thing, right? There's a lot of things now that they would either have to go full like deep fake, like a lead actor deep fake. Like I just don't know where the line goes on that, where it's like that's too much.
I think you're right. I think where the angle they're probably coming from that is like some sort of line, like where I think, even like right before that statement, she said, we weren't going to do Luke Skywalker without Mark. And it's like, but you are doing Luke Skywalker without Mark, like in your very next coming up, like 2 weeks from now property. So the weird thing is like, right, okay, but there's got to be an argument there. They obviously weren't going to like deep fake Mark Hamill down to a child. Like surely they just like took that and they're like, well, everybody's going to be okay with this. And I just feel like they feel like there's some sort of line where it's like maybe Alden was too close to Harrison, and maybe there's a discussion there of like, we will cast live people, but not that close to a character.
Maybe, because that's always been their policy, is
like if it was like preteen Han, then they obviously would have been okay with it, and everybody would have been okay with it because there's separation there. But this was, I think like they were thinking people are going to be okay with this. This is 10 years prior. People can close the gap. But maybe now, because of every other bad thing that went wrong, they're trying to get the easy out. And they're saying, we think that it was just too close of a gap. So we're not doing that again. We're not going to put a character so close. And but obviously Lando's just as close. So it's weird. I don't know.
But I've liked their policy,
3 years difference.
Their rules. I've liked that the rules that they'd used up until now, which is if someone existed in this timeline with this actor, anything after it has to be that actor. If you go back before, you can recast someone younger. And that's what they've always done. I mean, look what they did with Leia for episode 9. They used archive footage. Look what they're doing with Luke now. So I've liked that rule that they've implemented. I think that's good for continuity, for suspension of disbelief, all that. I think that's perfect in how they've been doing that. But now this whole thing with the deep fake stuff, I'm just curious how far they take it. Like, are we going to get a lot of this sort of version of Luke? I think that would despecialize it in a way. So I just don't know. And I'm not trying to be negative because I'm rooting for Star Wars so hard. I'm just saying, like, I'm wondering what this all means now because of, like you guys are saying, we have the Lando show coming up and Donald Glover just pretty much told Jimmy Kimmel, yeah, I'm doing it. So, and then the Michael Waldron stuff, like there's a lot of stuff where these, you got to think, and someone brought up a great point. What if Alden found out about all this via this thing? Like, that's heartbreaking.
I think that's kind of possible.
So it's like all these things where maybe people are hearing these things and they're like, I wasn't told that. Like, so I'm just very curious what's really going on behind the scenes. It seems like TV's in really great shape. So, you know, for a positive perspective, very excited about all of that. Even the stuff, I'm not saying just Favreau stuff. I'm saying obviously Kenobi, Acolyte, Andor, all of the things that are coming out for TV sound really strong, on strong footing. I think where we have to be a little concerned as fans is what started Star Wars, which are the movies. And I don't think that they're obviously not looking to abandon movies. She said she's looking for someone to run that ship. I think that's where we got to start wondering what all that means going forward.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm with you.
So
I just don't know if there's anything else to add. I think you talked through it, you know?
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to toss out there, Lacey, or final thoughts on this this interview, or your vibes on, you know, how the movies are versus TV and where you're at?
This interview was a rough read. I'm not gonna lie. I think it was rough from a logical sense of like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense, but also from the fan perspective of, you know, we really love Solo and we want to make Solo 2 happen, and it's kind of like that blow of like, oh, I guess this is basically saying it's not ever going to happen.
Yeah.
That doesn't change the fact that we're not going to still celebrate Solo and want it, and, you know, we're doing the meetup at Celebration. But yeah, it's just really weird. It was a weird interview. A lot of the quotes were just, people kept saying they were taken out of context, and I don't think they were.
No.
I think they were just presented poorly. But that doesn't change the fact that the majority of the video shoot and the photo shoot and the interview with Vanity Fair is really showing how they pivoted to television. We knew that going into from 2020 to now, how Disney was overall pivoting a lot of their stuff to Disney Plus, to the streaming and TV, especially. I think
features taking a hiatus, as the article started off.
Right, exactly. And I think Star Wars has done television, I think, better than Marvel. I think Star Wars has kind of killed it with TV compared to Marvel, whereas Marvel's definitely
We've only had
killing it with the movies.
show. That's it. We've had one show with 2 decent seasons. They've had 4 shows. So it's like
2 shows.
What? What are you
Book
talking
of
about?
Boba Fett.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry. I forgot about Book of Boba Fett.
Anyway, 2 shows where, like you said, James Marvel's had like 4 or 5 at this point.
4 at this point, I think.
Yeah, 4. So it's just, even with the difference in the amount of shows that have come out, you can see the quality with Star Wars just seems to be more there, and the impact is there just based on audience response and the numbers of people watching. People are still preferring the Star Wars over Marvel shows.
I am wrong on that one too. I forgot Hawkeye.
Yeah, I'm
really slacking on some of these. Yeah,
it's all right. But I'm interested to see where that goes, and I'm excited about the team that they've put together for television with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And I know when Kathleen was making those comments about them, they were coming from a place of her knowing she has the dream team, and she is trying to figure that out for the movie side. But the movie comments that she made were confusing and a little, like you said, John, disappointing. But that doesn't change my excitement going into Celebration. I think we're going to get a ton of information from Lucasfilm. I think we're going to get a ton of exciting news and developments. But I would very much like to sit down and compare the announcements from the Disney Investor Day to the announcements we're going to get at Celebration and see where we land with what's happening, what's not happening, where are we at.
Yeah, that's the only downside for me going into Celebration is like, I do have this asterisk now of like, man, that sounds great. We'll see, which we've had that discussion before. I've said that on the show before. So I'm a little nervous that sometimes they're going to be like, we're doing this. And I'm going to be like, okay, you know.
Remember Rangers of the New Republic?
I know.
I was just thinking that,
I mean,
Rangers.
it could go on and on and on as you name them. I feel like they've had more projects that have fallen apart than they've actually accomplished projects. So that's kind of interesting. And Lacey, you brought it up really quickly too. Like that was going to be my final note on this whole thing is like, we didn't even talk about the pictures. And like, I got very excited when I saw everybody lined up. And I know this is kind of just me, but like, I really like the one that stood out to me is Diego Luna.
I was going to say, is it Cassian?
Yes, it's Cassian and Mon Mothma. And I was like, she's on the cover. Like, I feel like Mon Mothma is like sneakily one of my favorite characters. I don't even know why. Like, she's just so freaking important. And for some reason, like, everybody's just like, oh yeah, she's like a person or something that does something. It's like, she's literally like the emperor of the good side. She's literally leading all of it. She's the head.
Her costume is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, and it looks so good. And I see the two of them there, and I'm like, it's real, and it's coming back, and I'm very excited for that. And they're standing next to Obi-Wan. They're standing next to Darth Vader and Riva and Ahsoka.
Is interesting that the Mandalorian and Ewan were at the same level. They view them at the same level of importance. And I know people are going to be like, Lacey, that's just a photo.
Yeah.
No, they definitely position them on purpose at the same forefront of like, these are the top two.
And that reminded me, and Annie Leibovitz has been shooting Star Wars for like 40 years. So it's so cool. And hearing Hayden Christensen falling over, being able to work with her again,
the cape
was very special.
is Luke's cape.
The fan with the cape was awesome, because that reminded me of that Revenge of the Sith poster where Anakin's cape looks like Darth Vader's mask. I thought that was so cool. So yeah, there's a lot of positives to take away. I just, it was important for us to address the stuff that concerned us, because when you love something as much as you love Star Wars, you root for it. And that's where this comes from. So I hope people, our audience, I think, understands when we do that stuff, that it comes from a place of loving this stuff. Always rooting for it. Like, I hope Kathleen Kennedy knocks it out of the park. I hope Celebration rocks. I hope everything is great. I hope Rogue Squadron gets back on its feet. So always rooting for it. Just hope, when things like this come out and it goes against things other people who are working on this are saying, you got to scratch your head a little bit. And when you look at the timelines of when things are said, it's a little odd. So hopefully things get cleared up. And like we said, Star Wars is always, we always root for it to be great, and always root for it to succeed. So looking forward to that. And we're looking forward to Celebration. And this is our last episode before Celebration. So I am just super excited for being with fellow Star Wars fans in person and everything that comes with it. So thanks to everybody who's been listening and watching and being a part of TRB. Like Lacey said, make sure you subscribe to the show, but also share with a friend. And if you're at Celebration this week and you see someone who maybe has one of our shirts or something, like stop them, talk to them, let them know you're a fan of ours, or just if you don't mind spreading the word about us and telling people about our event and the Makes a Little Too Happen meetup. But more importantly, we just hope everyone has a good time, because it's been, like Lacey says really well, it's been a rough couple of years, especially when we expected to go to another celebration in between the last one and this one, and that didn't happen. So I just hope, no matter how everybody feels about certain things or each other or whatever, just have the best time, because you deserve it, and everyone deserves to have a good time how they want to have a good time. So that's what it comes down to. And we're going to certainly do that. I'm really excited to be with you two and us to have a good time. That's really what it's all about. And it's called Star Wars Celebration for a reason. We're going to celebrate the heck out of that thing. So Make sure you go to StarWarsNewsNet.com for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. Keep your eyes, if you're not going to Celebration, on our channel, YouTube.com/StarWarsNewsNet videos. We'll be doing reaction stuff all week, whether it's in a stairwell, in our hotel rooms, wherever, in the media room. We'll be doing videos from the convention floor, taking a lot of photos. We're going to do our best to pull you into the experience. And then, of course, StarWarsNewsNet.com. Everyone's going to be covering what's going on from the site as well. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing and editing over at StarWarsNewsNet.com. And my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies, we put out our Top Gun episode today. So check that out before you see Tom Cruise's new epic, which he got a 6-minute standing ovation for at Cannes Film Festival.
And they gave him an award. They just gave it to him.
This movie is so hyped, it's out of control.
They literally gave him a standing ovation. We're like, here's an award.
It's insane. It's like I'm going to this movie expecting the greatest sequel in the history of movies.
We're going tomorrow.
So we'll see
It's
what
gonna be
happens.
fun.
We're literally going to be there tomorrow. It's crazy. But the thing about Top Gun, man, is it's like, it just really doesn't feel like it should even have a sequel, and yet I can't believe it's getting as high of reviews as it is.
Everyone's like, it's the funniest thing though is like it's all like the normal stuff like thrill rides, blah blah blah. But then there's always a line that's like, dads are gonna love this. Like every.
Well, people said they got emotional. Like, I don't know what we're in for. But James, where can people find you, buddy?
Everybody can find me on Twitter and Instagram during the whole week. Follow me just as the same as following John and Lacey on their individual accounts, not just Resistance Broadcast and Star Wars Newsnet. Follow us, all of us, because we're probably going to be tweeting a lot of fun stuff. But both of those are at Myra Trunks.
Yes. And Lacey, what do you got going on, and where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran. I'm definitely going to be doing, updates throughout the weekend, especially on Instagram. I'll probably be doing a lot of live videos. Well, not live videos, but like story videos. You can see me on our panel on Saturday. If you're a part of our Patreon, you get to see it live. You can see me on Friday at 1:30 on the fan stage talking about Rey and the difference she's made like throughout with new generations, which is kind of cool. It's a panel with a bunch of awesome people, so definitely check that out. We have a contest running this week, so definitely check that out with our buddy Justin over at Bandai Namco. You can win the May show. Am I saying it right?
May show.
May show. Mandalorian and Grogu figure. He told us that the cart wheels move, which is kind of cool. Be on the lookout for that video where he talks through everything that's going on at their booth, from an exclusive pin to voting on future figures to photo ops and much more. Definitely check that out on the channel. It will be up tomorrow, Tuesday.
Yeah. Our schedules for the week are just so jam-packed, like sleep's like the only free time.
And we're going to Galaxy's Edge for the first time.
We're going to Galaxy's Edge for the first time, me and Lacey, the three of us together.
Twice, too.
And again,
crazy.
Friday at 3:30 on the convention floor, we'll pick a good spot for our Make Solo 2 Happen meetup. Just celebrating loving Solo, whether they bring it back or not. It's all about, it's been 3 years of doing this, getting people together for the first time is going to be so awesome.
Wow.
And then, like Lacey said, our event Saturday, we're so excited about. So if you haven't RSVP'd yet, RSVP. If not, just come if you can. It's going to be so awesome. We're so excited. But that's it for this show. We'll see, in terms of the podcast, we'll see you on the other side of Celebration, but we have Kenobi stuff we got to do. Like, we got a lot to do, so we got to get out of here. But we hope everyone enjoyed this episode, and as always, until next time on the Resistance broadcast, from the three of us, we'll see you around, kids.